My name is Reagan Cole, and I'm 34 years old. 4 years ago, the night before Mother's Day, I realized something I never thought was possible. I had been erased from my own family, removed from our group chat, deleted like I was a mistake, like I had never belonged there in the first place. My mother's message to my siblings was painfully clear. All my children are successful, except Reagan. She chose to become a lowly teacher. I no longer consider her my daughter. I didn't cry. I didn't call her. I didn't beg for an explanation. I simply disappeared exactly the way she wanted me to. What she didn't know was that 4 years later, I would be standing on a stage in front of hundreds of people, shaking hands with the governor of North Carolina, while she sat in the audience, uninvited, waiting for recognition that would never come. Before we continue, take a moment to subscribe, but only if you believe in standing up for your worth and choosing the life you truly deserve. I'd also love to know, where are you watching from? What's the weather like there right now? And just so you know, this story is a work of fiction. Some elements have been enhanced with AI to make it more vivid and engaging. I hope it feels real enough to move you. Now, let me take you back to the beginning, to the night I lost the family I thought I had, and started building the one I actually deserved. Growing up, the Cole family looked perfect from the outside. We lived in a quiet suburb outside Charlotte, where appearances mattered more than truth. My mother, Diane Cole, retired at 56 from her role as a senior financial executive, not because she needed to, but because she had finally secured her place at the prestigious Willow Ridge Country Club. The membership alone cost more than I made in an entire year. She wore her designer silk scarves like armor, always perfectly styled, always understated enough to whisper wealth without saying it out loud, even though, in reality, our old money image was barely a generation deep. My older sister, Vanessa, was the pride of the family. 38 years old, a cosmetic surgeon in Raleigh, with clients that included local TV personalities and political elites. Her social media was filled with polished perfection, diamond watches casually placed beside wine glasses, flawless manicures wrapped around champagne flutes at charity galas. Every holiday, she would casually update us on her latest subtle enhancements, as if no one noticed the tighter skin, the fuller lips, the ever-changing version of her face. Then there was my brother, Ethan, 40 years old, a corporate attorney in Atlanta. He drove a black Range Rover and made sure it was always parked somewhere impossible to ignore at every family gathering. His wife, Lillian, collected luxury handbags like trophies, each one carefully chosen, each one more expensive than the last. And then there was me, Reagan, the youngest, the one who didn't quite fit into the picture they had so carefully designed, the one who chose a different path, and, in their eyes, chose to become nothing. I was a fourth-grade teacher at Pine Hollow Elementary, a small school tucked between stretches of farmland about an hour and a half from my mother's perfectly staged colonial house. My car was a 12-year-old Honda Civic with a dent on the passenger side I never bothered fixing. My apartment was so small it could have fit inside Vanessa's walk-in closet, but that wasn't the part my family ever talked about. At country club brunches, when my mother listed her children, she always said she had two, a surgeon and a lawyer, never three. What no one ever asked was why. I didn't become a teacher because I had no other options. When I graduated high school, I had a 4.1 GPA and a full scholarship to study pre-med at Duke, the same path Vanessa had taken years earlier. My mother had already started telling everyone. She even ordered a future doctor decal for her car before I had signed anything. The story of my life had already been written for me, but that summer, Everything changed. I volunteered at a literacy program for kids in underserved communities nearby. That's where I met a boy named Caleb. He was 8 years old and struggled to read even the simplest sentences. Teachers had labeled him slow. His classmates had stopped trying to include him. By the end of the summer, he was reading chapter books out loud. Slowly, imperfectly, but proudly. The day he finished his first book on his own, he wrapped his arms around me so tightly I could barely breathe. That was the moment I knew. That night, I called my mother and told her I was turning down the scholarship. I was going to study education instead. I wanted to teach. There was silence on the line. I counted it. 17 seconds. Then she spoke. "You're throwing your life away," she said flatly. "For what? A small salary and a thankless job." She didn't come to my college graduation. She said she had a prior commitment. A luncheon at Willow Ridge. Vanessa mailed me a card with a $50 check and a note that read, "Good luck with your little career." I cashed the check because I needed groceries. But I never forgot what it really meant. You chose wrong. You chose less. And we will never let you forget it. The truth was, I didn't choose to be poor. I chose purpose. But to my mother, those two things were exactly the same. The distance between us didn't happen overnight. It grew slowly, quietly, like something rotting behind the walls. By Thanksgiving in 2019, it was impossible to ignore. I arrived at her house carrying a homemade sweet potato casserole, her favorite recipe, passed down from my grandmother. When I walked into the dining room, I saw my place card. Not at the main table, at a small folding table in the corner, next to Vanessa's stepkids and Ethan's toddler nephew. "Oh, sweetheart. We just ran out of space," my mother said, adjusting her pearls without looking at me. "You don't mind, do you? You're so good with children." I was 30 years old. Christmas was worse. I spent 3 weeks knitting her a cashmere scarf in her favorite shade of gray. When she opened it, she held it up between her fingers, smiled politely, and said, "How handmade." Then she turned to Vanessa, who had just gifted her a Chanel clutch. For the next 20 minutes, she admired every detail of it like it was a museum piece. The scarf I made ended up in the coat closet. I found it there 2 months later, still wrapped in tissue paper. The tags I had carefully removed shoved back inside like an afterthought. But the moment that finally broke something in me came on her birthday in early 2020. I called to ask what time dinner was. "Oh, Reagan," she said, her voice dripping with rehearsed regret. "The restaurant only had 6 seats. Your father, Ethan and Lillian, Vanessa and her date. You understand. Don't you? Family comes first. 6 seats. And somehow, I wasn't family enough to fill one of them. But even that wasn't the worst part, because none of it prepared me for what came next. The only person who still treated me like I existed was my cousin Hannah. She was 24 at the time, my Aunt Linda's daughter, 8 years younger than me and just starting her first job in marketing. We had always been close. I used to babysit her when she was little, take her to the library, help her with homework when things at home got messy. Hannah noticed things other people ignored, especially when someone was being quietly erased. Hannah was the kind of person who noticed when you were hurting, even when you tried to hide it. The night before Mother's Day 2020, my phone rang at 11:47 p.m. Her name lit up the screen. When I answered, her voice was shaking. "Reagan, I need to tell you something. I didn't know if I should. But you deserve to know." My stomach dropped. "What happened?" "Check your messages." The family group. I opened the app, scrolled to the group my mother had created years ago to coordinate holidays. I wasn't in it anymore. "Hannah, I know they removed you. Your mom asked Vanessa to do it last week. But she only got around to it tonight. Her voice cracked. Reagan, I'm so sorry. I screenshot everything. I'm sending it to you now. My phone buzzed. One image, then another. I stared at the screen, at my mother's words frozen in digital text. Something inside me went very, very quiet. Why are you telling me this? I whispered. Because you're my family, Hannah said. Even if they've decided you're not theirs. I saved those screenshots in a folder I titled Proof. I didn't know then that I would need them. I just knew I couldn't let those words disappear. I read that screenshot again and again that night, not because I didn't understand the words. I understood them perfectly. I kept reading because part of me kept searching for something else. A different meaning, a softer explanation. There wasn't one. The message was from my mother. Posted in the group at 8:32 p.m. Reminder: Mother's Day dinner at Oak Ridge Bistro, 7 p.m. sharp. All my children will be there. All my successful children. Reagan chose to be a teacher. I no longer consider her my daughter. Please don't mention her name tomorrow. Below it, Vanessa had replied with a heart emoji. Just a heart. No protest. No hesitation. Ethan's response followed. Understood. 2 words. That was all I was worth to my brother. 2 words and complete agreement. I sat on the edge of my bed in my small apartment, my phone still in my hands. I didn't cry. I wanted to. I wanted to scream into a pillow, to call my mother and demand an explanation. But what would that change? She had made her decision. She had announced it like a statement. And everyone had accepted it. I stayed awake until 2 in the morning, staring at those messages, reading the timestamps, noticing that not a single person had spoken up. Not my father, not my aunt, no one. Hannah was the only one who warned me. By the time the sun came up, I had made a decision of my own. If my mother wanted me gone, I would be gone. Completely. On my own terms. But I would not forget. And I would not delete those screenshots. Some things you keep forever. Mother's Day morning. I woke up to silence. No calls. No texts. No awkward message pretending everything was normal. For the first time in 30 years. I didn't send my mother flowers. I didn't call to wish her a happy day. I didn't drive to sit at a table where I didn't belong. I made coffee. I graded papers. Then I went for a walk along the creek behind my apartment and watched the sunlight move across the water. And I thought about my options. I could call her, confront her, demand to know why she said those things, why she cut me out, why being a teacher made me unworthy of her love. I could post the message online and let people see the truth. I could show up at the restaurant uninvited and force them to acknowledge me. But what would any of that accomplish? My mother had already made her choice. She had chosen status over her own child. She had chosen appearances over truth. If she wanted me to disappear, I would give her exactly that. Not because she demanded it, but because I chose it, that afternoon. I blocked her number, then Vanessa's, then Ethan's. I deleted my social media so I wouldn't have to see their perfect family photos. I didn't know then that my silence would last for years. If you believe my mother was right to cut me off just because I chose to be a teacher, comment, perfect choice. But if you think no parent should ever abandon their child over status or career, then comment, protest. Sometimes, the hardest truths are the ones that reveal what we truly value, love or pride. I didn't know then how much those years would change me. All I knew in that quiet moment was this. I would never beg to be loved by people who saw me as an embarrassment. Life moved forward, with or without me. And the Cole family continued as if I had never existed. 6 months after that Mother's Day, Hannah called me with an update I hadn't asked for. Thanksgiving photos are up, she said quietly. Vanessa posted them an hour ago. I told myself I wouldn't look. I lasted 3 hours. The photo showed my mother seated at the head of her dining table. Everything polished to perfection. Vanessa and Ethan sat on either side of her, their spouses carefully positioned behind them. Crystal glasses reflected the light. A perfectly roasted turkey sat in the center like a centerpiece in a magazine spread. The caption read, "Grateful for my amazing family. Mom, you raised us right. 3 people, not 4. There wasn't even an empty chair where I used to sit. It was as if they had simply adjusted the table, rewritten the layout, and erased me completely. By Christmas, I stopped checking social media altogether. But Hannah still called. Your mom has been telling people you're doing volunteer work overseas, she said one evening. She says you're working with some education nonprofit. Very impressive. That you can't come home because you're changing lives abroad. I let out a quiet laugh. The kind that didn't sound like humor at all. She's lying, I said. She doesn't want anyone to know she cut me off. It's easier to pretend I left on my own. Hannah hesitated. She also told Mrs. Carter at the club that you were nominated for an international teaching award in Kenya. I hadn't left North Carolina in years. That was when something finally clicked. My mother didn't hate me. She hated what my life said about her. So she created a version of me that fit her story. Someone impressive. Someone distant. Someone she could talk about without shame. A daughter she could be proud of. Just not the real one. The real me. The one teaching 4th grade an hour away. Had already been erased. I met Daniel Brooks on a cool Tuesday in October, surrounded by pumpkins and the laughter of 9-year-olds. His farm, Brooks Family Acres, was well known in the area. Rolling fields, fresh produce, and an orchard that families visited every fall. I had brought my students there for a field trip. He was standing by an old tractor when we arrived. Tall, steady, with a quiet kind of presence that didn't need to prove anything. You must be Ms. Cole, he said, offering his hand. My daughter hasn't stopped talking about you. His daughter, Emma, was 5. Bright, curious, and full of energy. She was in kindergarten at my school, and I tutored her twice a week after her mother passed away the year before. She's incredible, I told him. She asks questions most adults don't think to ask. Something softened in his expression. She says you're her favorite teacher, he said with a small smile. That field trip turned into a conversation. The conversation turned into coffee. Coffee turned into long afternoons talking under the shade of an old oak tree on his property. One afternoon, he asked about my family. I don't have one, I said. Or they decided they don't have me. He didn't press. He didn't ask for details. He just handed me a slice of apple pie and said, "Family isn't always about blood. Sometimes it's about who stays." That was the moment something inside me shifted. For the first time, I started to believe it. 2 years passed quietly, like pages turning in a story I was finally writing for myself. In 2022, Daniel and I got married. Not in a ballroom, not surrounded by hundreds of guests. Just beneath that same oak tree, with Emma scattering petals and a few close friends standing beside us. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. That same year, I officially adopted Emma, the day the paperwork was finalized. She handed me a drawing she had made with bright crayons. 3 stick figures stood under a large yellow sun, holding hands. At the bottom, in uneven kindergarten letters, she had written, "My mom, my dad, me." I kept that drawing in my desk at school. On days when everything felt overwhelming, I would take it out and look at it, reminding myself what truly mattered. I completed my master's degree in educational leadership through late nights and long weekends. I wrote papers at 11 o'clock, after Emma had fallen asleep, studied during lunch breaks, and kept going even when I was exhausted. I wanted to prove something to myself. That ambition didn't have to mean leaving behind the people who needed me most. When a position opened for assistant principal at Pine Hollow Elementary, I applied. The interview panel included 3 school board members. Daniel was one of them, and he stepped out of the process to avoid any conflict. I got the job anyway, through all of it. I stayed quiet. No social media, no announcements, no updates to the family that had erased me. Somewhere in Charlotte, my mother was still telling people I was working overseas, building schools, changing lives somewhere far away, somewhere else. Vanessa continued posting pictures of perfect dinners and polished smiles, and I let them believe whatever version of me they needed. They had no idea who I had become, and I wasn't ready to tell them. Not yet. The call came on a Thursday afternoon in March 2024. Mrs. Cole Brooks. The voice was formal and precise. This is Diane Miller from the North Carolina Department of Education. The board has reviewed your application, and I'm pleased to inform you that you've been selected as the new superintendent of schools for Jefferson County. I sat down slowly at my desk, my legs suddenly unsteady. Superintendent. A position I had applied for without expectation, never believing I would actually be chosen. Overseeing multiple schools, hundreds of teachers, thousands of students. Are you certain? I asked quietly. Your record speaks for itself. She replied. Reading levels have improved significantly under your leadership. Teacher retention is the highest in your district, and your mentorship program is now being considered statewide. There was a brief pause. Dr. Carter personally recommended you. She called you one of the most dedicated educators she has ever worked with. Dr. Carter had been my mentor during my first year teaching. I hadn't spoken to her in months. The announcement appeared in a local newspaper 2 weeks later. A small headline, local educator named superintendent. My photo was pulled from the school website. Simple. Unremarkable. I didn't think anyone from my past would notice. I was wrong. Hannah called me that evening, her voice breathless. Reagan, your sister just posted the article in the family group chat. She wrote, Isn't this our Reagan? My chest tightened. What did my mother say? Nothing. Hannah replied. Then she hesitated. But I was at Aunt Linda's when it happened. Your mom called Vanessa immediately. I could hear her through the phone. I waited. She was angry. Reagan. Not proud. Angry? She kept saying she didn't know. That she had been telling everyone you were overseas. That now people would find out you'd been here the whole time. 3 days later, I received an email. The subject line read, From your mother. I almost deleted it. Almost. I opened it. My dearest Reagan. It began. I saw the wonderful news about your promotion. I always knew you had it in you. We should meet for lunch soon. I would love to hear about everything you've accomplished. Mother's Day is coming up. It would mean so much to have the whole family together again. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of the 4 years they had erased me, no mention of the message that had cut me out of their lives. Just an invitation, written as if nothing had happened, as if I had simply been away and could step back into place without a word. I didn't reply. 2 weeks later, my phone rang from a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then answered. Reagan. It's Vanessa. Her voice was soft, almost familiar, like something from another life. I know it's been a while, but I wanted to reach out. Mom hasn't been feeling well. She keeps asking about you. She really wants to see you. What's wrong with her? I asked. Just stress. You know how she is. But she misses you. Reagan. We all do. That night, I called Hannah. Is she actually sick? Hannah let out a short laugh. She was at the spa yesterday, posted a picture in the steam room. She paused. They're not calling because they miss you. They're calling because of your promotion. I already knew that. But hearing it out loud made it settle deeper. Have you ever gotten a call like that one where the words sound right, but something underneath feels hollow, if you know what I mean? Comment? Yes. I wish I could say I was strong through all of it, that I never doubted myself. But that wouldn't be true after that call. The questions started creeping in. At work, people kept congratulating me. The news about my promotion had spread quickly, and everyone assumed my family must be proud. I smiled and nodded, and wondered if I was the one who had walked away too easily. Everyone wanted to shake my hand, ask about my plans, and tell me how proud they were. And then came the questions I had learned to avoid. Your parents must be so proud, my assistant principal said one morning, smiling. I bet your mom is telling everyone. I smiled back, nodded, and changed the subject before the conversation could go any further. That night, I sat at the kitchen table while Daniel rinsed dishes and Emma worked on her homework nearby. The house was quiet, but not peaceful. You're somewhere else, Daniel said without turning around. Talk to me. I pressed my hands against my eyes for a moment. Vanessa called. She said Mom's been asking about me, that she misses me. I looked up at him. What if I'm wrong? Daniel, what if I've been too harsh? She's still my mother. Maybe I should have what he asked gently, called her back, gone to dinner, pretended none of it happened. My voice trembled. Isn't that what people do? They forgive family. I hesitated. What if I'm the one who walked away too easily? Daniel didn't answer right away. He dried his hands, walked into the other room, and came back with his laptop. I want to show you something, he said quietly. I've been saving it for a moment like this. He set the laptop on the table and opened a folder labeled Reagan. Do not delete. Inside were files I recognized instantly. The first was the screenshot Hannah had sent me 4 years ago. The timestamp was still there. The words were unchanged. I no longer consider her my daughter. The second was my mother's recent email. The same one I had read and reread. Polite, careful, completely empty of accountability. The third was a photo from Vanessa's social media. Thanksgiving. The family seated together. No empty chair. No trace of me. I saved everything, Daniel said. Every message Hannah ever sent you. Every photo I could find. I kept it all. Just in case you needed to remember. He sat across from me. I knew there would be a moment when you'd start doubting yourself. When you'd wonder if you were the problem. I stared at the screen. At the quiet proof of everything I had been through. And felt something shift inside me. You didn't fail, he continued. You survived. You built a life. You became someone without them. He reached for my hand. You don't owe forgiveness to people who never asked for it. You owe yourself honesty. I closed the laptop slowly. Hannah sent something else. I said. Daniel looked at me carefully. Are you sure you want to see it? I nodded. He opened another file. A new screenshot. A message from the same group chat I had been removed from years ago. My mother's name at the top. The date from just 1 day earlier. Wonderful news. Reagan will be honored at the State Teacher of the Year ceremony next month. It will be televised. I've already confirmed our attendance. We'll arrive early, sit in the family section, and join her on stage for photos. Below it, Vanessa had replied, I'll wear the red dress. Ethan added, I'll be there. I read the message again, slower this time, and suddenly, Everything made sense. This is an opportunity to show everyone that the Cole family stands together. Vanessa replied first. Already picked out my dress. Should I bring flowers? Ethan followed. I'll clear my schedule. Good PR move. Not a single message asked if I wanted them there. Not one mentioned an apology, or even a conversation before showing up at the most important moment of my career. They're planning to take over your ceremony, Daniel said. His voice controlled but tense. Walk in like nothing happened. Smile for the cameras. Pretend they supported you all along. I read the messages again. Slower this time. My mother's words echoed in my mind. An opportunity. Not I miss you. Not I was wrong. An opportunity to repair her image, to rewrite the story, to stand beside me and pretend she had always been there. They don't want me back, I said quietly, the realization settling deep. They want the version of me they can use. Daniel nodded. So what are you going to do? I looked at the screen one last time. The careful planning, the easy agreement, the complete absence of remorse. I'm going to let them come, I said. And then, I'm going to tell the truth. That night, we sat around the kitchen table, Daniel beside me, Hannah on video call. All of us focused like we were planning something far bigger than a speech. You could block them, Hannah suggested. Call security. Don't let them in, and become the ungrateful daughter who turned her own family away. I replied, that's the story they'll tell. Daniel leaned forward. Then what's the alternative? Let them show up and pretend everything is fine. I had already thought through every possibility. No, I said. I let them come. I don't confront them beforehand. I don't warn them. I took a slow breath. And when I stand on that stage, in front of everyone, I thank my family. Hannah went still on the screen. Reagan. I thank my family. I repeated. My husband Daniel, who stood by me when no one else did. My daughter Emma, who showed me what love is supposed to feel like. I paused. That's it. Silence filled the room. You're not going to mention them at all? Daniel asked. Why would I? I said calmly. They made it clear I'm not their family. I pulled up the screenshot on my phone, the message that had ended everything. I don't need to expose them. I don't need to read this out loud. I just need to leave them out. Hannah frowned slightly. And if your mother tries to get on stage anyway, I smiled for the first time in days. Then I'll remind her that I'm respecting the boundaries she set. She said I wasn't her daughter anymore. I'm just honoring her words. 3 days before the ceremony, my phone rang. Reagan. We need to talk. It was Dr. Carter. Her voice was direct. The same steady tone I remembered from my first year teaching. My chest tightened. What happened? There's been a request, she said. Someone contacted the event coordinator last week. A woman named Diane Cole. She said she's your mother. I closed my eyes briefly. And she asked to speak during the family portion of the program. She wanted to say a few words about raising you. My grip tightened around the phone as everything fell into place. She did what the coordinator passed the request to me. Dr. Carter continued. Since I'm giving the introduction speech, I declined it. There was a pause. Heavier this time. Reagan, I don't know everything about your family. You've never told me, and I've never asked. But I do know you. I've watched you work for years. If you wanted your mother involved, you would have said so. I let out a slow breath. Thank you. Dr. Carter, I'll be introducing you on that stage, she said. And I'm going to speak about your work, your dedication, the lives you've changed. Not your last name, not your background. Only what you built yourself. Her voice softened slightly. You earned this? No one else gets to rewrite that? When the call ended, Daniel was standing in the doorway, watching me. She tried to get on stage. I said quietly. Dr. Carter stopped her. He nodded once. Not surprised. She really believes she can just step back into your life, he said. She believes she deserves to, I replied. That's the difference. The night before the ceremony. I sat at the kitchen table with a blank notebook in front of me. A cup of tea cooled beside my hand. Emma had gone to bed an hour earlier, her small voice still echoing in my mind. You're going to do amazing tomorrow, Mom. Daniel stayed in the other room, giving me space. He understood that some things had to be faced alone. I stared at the page. I would like to thank. The pen hovered. Who did I thank? My colleagues? Of course, Dr. Carter. The people who had believed in me, the students who made every long day worth it. And then, there was the question I couldn't ignore. Did I mention my mother? I thought about her. The image she had created. The version of me she told people about. The version that made her look better. I imagined her preparing for tomorrow, choosing the right outfit, practicing the right expression, getting ready to stand beside me as if she had always been there. I lowered my pen to the paper. I want to thank my family. I wrote slowly. The family I chose. The family that chose me. My husband Daniel, who stood by me when no one else did. My daughter Emma, who taught me that love doesn't need to be earned. I stopped. That was it. No mention of my past. No acknowledgement of the people who had erased me. Just the truth. The family I would thank was the one that had stayed. Are you finished? Daniel asked softly from the doorway. I looked down at the page, then back at him. I am. The next morning, I stood in front of the state capitol building, its white columns rising into the sky. I had seen pictures of it before, but standing there felt different. I held Emma's hand tightly. Daniel stood beside me. Together. We walked inside, and for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of who might be waiting. The chamber was larger than I had imagined, far more imposing in person than in any photograph I had seen. Rows of chairs stretched across the polished floor in perfect alignment, each one occupied by educators from every corner of the state. Principals, teachers, school board members, and administrators filled the room. People who had spent years in classrooms before stepping into positions like mine. 3 camera crews were stationed near the back, their lenses already trained toward the stage, capturing everything for a live broadcast. I approached the registration table and signed my name. A volunteer handed me a badge with a warm smile. Reagan Cole Brooks, 2024 State Teacher of the Year. She read softly, "Congratulations. Your family must be so proud." I returned the smile automatically. "They are?" I said. Daniel and Emma followed me to the front row, where seats had been reserved for honorees and their immediate families. Emma climbed into her chair, her small legs swinging gently because they didn't quite reach the floor. She wore the yellow dress we had chosen together, embroidered with tiny flowers that caught the light every time she moved. "Mom," she whispered, tugging on my sleeve. "Is that your name up there?" I looked toward the stage. A large banner stretched across the backdrop. My name printed in bold letters, unmistakable and impossible to ignore. I squeezed her hand. "Yes, sweetheart. That's my name." For a moment, everything felt steady. Then I felt it. That familiar, unmistakable awareness. The sense of eyes fixed on my back. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I already knew. I heard my mother's voice before I saw her. "Excuse me. That's my daughter up there. The honoree. I need to be in the family section." Her tone carried across the room with practiced confidence, the same tone she had always used to command attention. to assert belonging wherever she chose to stand. I kept my eyes forward. Just breathe. From the corner of my vision, I watched them arrive. My mother in a cream suit. Pearls resting neatly against her collar, her posture flawless. Vanessa beside her in a striking red dress, carefully chosen, every detail intentional. Ethan followed in a tailored charcoal suit, his expression composed and unreadable. They moved together, deliberate and assured, and took seats directly behind us, as if nothing had ever changed, as if they had always been there. I heard my mother lean toward someone seated nearby. "I'm Diane Cole," she said, Reagan's mother. "I raised her from the day she was born. Everything she is. She owes to me." The woman beside her nodded politely, her eyes flickering briefly toward the stage before returning to the conversation. Vanessa leaned forward slightly, close enough that I could sense her presence. "Reagan. You look well," she said, her voice soft, almost careful. I didn't respond. A moment later, I felt a hand touch my shoulder. "Aren't you going to say hello to your family?" Ethan asked. I turned my head just enough to speak, not enough to meet his eyes. "My family is sitting right next to me." Then I faced forward again, tightening my hold on Emma's hand. The room gradually quieted as Dr. Carter stepped onto the stage. She adjusted the microphone, her presence immediately commanding attention without effort. "In my years working in education," she began, "I've had the privilege of meeting many extraordinary individuals. But today, I want to speak about someone who stands apart." I felt movement behind me, my mother shifting slightly, adjusting her posture, preparing for the attention she expected would follow. Reagan Cole Brooks began her career in a small rural school. Dr. Carter continued. With limited resources, but with a level of dedication that cannot be taught. Her voice was calm and steady, filling the room without strain. In her first year, she helped her students exceed expectations in ways that statistics alone cannot fully capture, not through shortcuts, but through consistency, through showing up, day after day. She paused, letting the silence settle around her words. Reagan did not come from a background of advantage. She did not rely on connections or reputation. She built her path through persistence, discipline, and an unwavering belief in her students. Something in her tone shifted, subtle but intentional. She earned everything she stands on today. I felt my breath catch, just for a moment. And along the way, Dr. Carter continued, her voice softening slightly. She built something equally important, a family that reflects the values she lives by. She gestured toward the front row, her husband, Daniel, and her daughter, Emma, who told me backstage that her mother is the best teacher in the world. The cameras turned toward them, not behind me, not toward the figures seated just a few feet away, waiting to be acknowledged, only toward the people who had been there through everything. A quiet sound came from behind me, a sharp intake of breath, the faint creak of a chair shifting under tension. Dr. Carter smiled. "Please welcome your 2024 State Teacher of the Year, Reagan Cole Brooks." I stood, my legs steady beneath me, and walked toward the podium. 500 faces watched in silence. The cameras followed every movement, and somewhere behind me, 3 people waited for something they believed was theirs. Recognition, gratitude, a place in a story they had tried to rewrite. I reached the microphone and looked out across the room. "Thank you," I said. My voice didn't shake. For the first time in years, there was no hesitation, no doubt, only truth. When I started teaching 15 years ago, I didn't know if I would last a semester. The hours were long, the pay was modest, and some people questioned whether it was a path worth choosing. I paused for a moment, letting the words settle in the quiet room. But here's what I learned. I continued. Teaching isn't about proving anything to anyone. It's about showing up for the students who need you, especially when no one else does. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It carried weight. I took a breath and continued. I want to thank my colleagues at Pine Hollow Elementary. You have been my support system, my constant, my reason to keep going on the hardest days. And to Dr. Carter, who believed in me when I was just a nervous 22-year-old with a dream I wasn't sure I could reach. I owe you more than I can ever say. I turned toward the front row, and to my family. I smiled at Daniel, at Emma, my husband Daniel, who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself, and my daughter Emma, who reminds me every single day what love without conditions truly looks like. I stopped speaking. That was it. That was the list. Behind me. A chair shifted, then a voice cut through the room. Reagan. My mother. I didn't turn around. Reagan. Sweetheart. You didn't forget your own mother. Did you? Her voice carried. Perfectly measured. Somewhere between hurt and authority. Designed to make the audience sympathize with her. Designed to make me look like the one who had done something wrong. I heard movement. The sound of heels against marble. She was walking toward the stage. 500 people turned to watch. Cameras followed her. The moment stretched, heavy and inescapable. She reached the bottom of the steps. Her expression composed. Her smile practiced. I'd just like to say a few words about my daughter, about how proud I am of everything she has, Mrs. Cole. My voice was calm, steady, carried clearly through the microphone. She stopped mid-step, one foot on the first stair. Thank you for being here, I said, finally meeting her eyes for the first time in 4 years. But the family portion of my speech is already complete. Her smile faltered. Just for a second, a crack in something that had always seemed unbreakable. Reagan, I'm your mother. The room held its breath. You said you no longer considered me your daughter? I replied. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. 4 years ago, in a message to the entire family, you said I chose to be a teacher, and that I was no longer part of your life. A ripple moved through the audience. Whispers. Shock. Someone dropped a program. The sound echoing in the stillness. I've simply respected your decision. I continued. The family I thanked today is the one who stood beside me, the one who never asked me to prove my worth through a title or a salary. A security guard approached her carefully, gesturing back toward her seat. She didn't move. For a moment, she stood frozen between two worlds, the one she had created and the one she could no longer control. For the first time in my life, she had no words. The silence lasted only a few seconds. Then, somewhere in the audience, someone began to clap, slow, measured, certain. Another joined, then another. The sound grew, spreading through the room like a wave until every person in that chamber was on their feet. 500 people applauding, not for perfection, not for status, but for truth. I gripped the edges of the podium, my eyes burning, my chest tight with something I hadn't felt before. Relief. The guard gently guided my mother back to her seat. Her movements were stiff now, uncertain. The confidence she had carried into the room had faded. Vanessa reached for her, whispering something urgent. But my mother pulled away. Fragments of conversation drifted through the air. Did you hear that she disowned her over being a teacher? That's unbelievable. The story spread quickly, moving from row to row, reshaping the room around us. When the applause finally faded and people sat back down, I glanced behind me. My mother sat rigidly in her chair, staring forward, her expression unreadable. Vanessa was typing furiously on her phone. Ethan's jaw was tight, his eyes fixed ahead. And, in the front row, Emma was looking up at me. Her eyes were shining. "You did it." "Mom," she whispered. I smiled at her. Only her. Everything else faded. This was my family. This was enough. After the ceremony, I stepped into the hallway, the noise of the chamber fading behind me. I had just finished speaking with the governor, who had shaken my hand and told me my speech was one of the most honest he had heard in years. And then I saw them, waiting, blocking my path. My mother, Vanessa, Ethan, standing together, as if nothing had changed. My mother stood there, flanked by Vanessa and Ethan, moving through the hallway with the quiet certainty of people who believed they were owed an explanation. "Reagan." Her voice was lower now, stripped of the performance she had used on stage. "We need to talk. Privately." I kept my tone calm, professional. "If you have something to say, Mrs. Cole, you can say it here." Her eyes flicked toward the people around us, other honorees, families. A reporter nearby scribbling notes. "You humiliated me," she said tightly. In front of everyone, I stated a fact. I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, and held up the screenshot I had carried for 4 years. "This is the message you sent. May 9th, 2020. I turned the screen toward her. "I no longer consider her my daughter." Her face paled slightly. I was upset. She said quickly, "Things get taken out of context." "Context?" I asked. I scrolled, showing the timestamp, the replies, Vanessa's heart emoji, Ethan's short confirmation. This was sent to the entire family. "You told them to act like I didn't exist. There is no other context." Ethan stepped forward, his voice controlled, measured. "Reagan, let's be reasonable. I was reasonable for 30 years. I replied. My voice stayed steady. "I was reasonable when you seated me at a separate table. Reasonable when my graduation didn't matter. Reasonable when you all decided my career made me disposable." I lowered my phone. "I'm done being reasonable." Vanessa's composure cracked first. "This is ridiculous," she snapped. "We came here to support you. We rearranged everything for this. You came here for appearances." I said evenly, "I saw your message. Asking if you should bring flowers isn't support, it's staging." Her expression tightened. "How do you even know about that?" "It doesn't matter," I said. "What matters is that you plan to stand beside me and take credit for something you ignored for years." Ethan shifted tactics, his tone smooth, persuasive. "Think about this carefully. The video is already circulating. People are talking. This is affecting all of us. All of you," I repeated. "For the family name." He added, "I haven't used that name in years," I said quietly. I lifted my hand slightly, the simple ring catching the light. "I'm Reagan Brooks now." I looked at him steadily. Family names only matter when the people behind them act like a family. Vanessa stepped closer, her voice low and sharp. "You think you're better than us, don't you?" I met her gaze. "No, I think I'm exactly what I've always been. A teacher." The word hung there. The same teacher you were embarrassed by. The same one Mom refused to acknowledge. I looked at all 3 of them. "I didn't become better than you. You decided I wasn't enough, and I stopped trying to prove you wrong." Behind me, I heard footsteps, Daniel's steady presence. Emma's small hand slipped into mine. "Ready to go." he asked quietly. More than ready. I turned back to my mother one last time. She looked different now. Smaller. The carefully constructed image she carried had cracked. Just enough to show what was underneath. 4 years ago, I said softly, so only she could hear. You made a choice. Her lips pressed together. You chose your image over your daughter. You chose what people would think over someone who loved you. Her expression faltered. Just for a second. I could hate you for that. I continued. I thought about it for a long time. I took a breath. But if I did, it would mean you still had control over my life. And you don't. She didn't speak. I'm not asking for an apology. I said. I don't need one to be happy. I've been happy without you. I let the words settle. This isn't about punishing you. It's about understanding the difference between forgiveness and self-respect. I turned slightly toward Vanessa. You asked if I think I'm better than you. I don't. I just believe I deserve to be loved without conditions. And I found that somewhere else. Then to Ethan. You care about the family name. But family isn't a name. It's showing up. And you didn't. I stepped back. Daniel's hand rested gently against my back. Emma leaned into me. Goodbye. Mrs. Cole, I said. I glanced at the others. Vanessa. Ethan. I gave a small nod. I hope you find what you're looking for. But you won't find it with me. We walked past them without stopping. No hesitation. No looking back. The doors closed behind us. And for the first time, it felt final. The consequences didn't happen all at once. They never do. It didn't happen all at once. The consequences came slowly, quietly, like something seeping through cracks you didn't even realize were there. A month after the ceremony, Hannah called me with updates I hadn't asked for, but somehow needed to hear. Your mom stepped down from the country club committee. She said she told everyone she needed to focus on personal matters. But that's not why. I stirred my coffee, watching the cream spiral into the dark liquid. People are asking questions, Hannah continued. About you, about the speech, about what kind of mother cuts off her own daughter for being a teacher. I didn't respond right away. And Vanessa deleted everything. She added, all the family photos, every post. I exhaled slowly. Someone commented on her professional page, Hannah said, a sharp edge in her voice. They asked if she was the sister who sent a heart emoji when your mom disowned you. Apparently, that doesn't look great to potential clients. I could imagine it. The carefully built image, unraveling in small, visible ways. And Ethan, I asked. He's gone quiet. Told Aunt Linda the situation was exaggerated and that he didn't want to talk about it. Of course he did. That was how people like them handled things. Not with accountability, but with distance. No one was openly cutting ties with them. No one was making a scene. But the shift was there. Whispers. Questions that lingered just a little too long. The kind of quiet judgment that didn't need to be spoken out loud. Your mom started seeing a therapist. Hannah said more softly. She told Aunt Linda she wants to understand what went wrong. I set my mug down. Good for her. There was a pause. You don't want to know more? Hannah asked. What if she's actually changing? I looked out the window. Toward the oak tree in our yard. The same one where Daniel and I had made our vows. Maybe she is, I said. But that doesn't change what happened. I let the words settle. And it doesn't mean I have to go back. 6 months later. I finally understood what peace felt like. Not silence. Our home was never quiet. Emma practiced piano in the living room, repeating the same notes over and over until she got them right. Daniel argued with the tractor in the barn like it could hear him. The chickens made noise about everything. But underneath all of that, there was something steady, something certain. The kind of calm that comes from knowing exactly where you belong. I was still working as superintendent. The job was demanding. Meetings. Decisions. Responsibilities that never seemed to end. But every morning, when I walked into my office, I saw Emma's drawing pinned above my desk. 3 figures holding hands under a bright sun. My mom, my dad, me. That was my reminder. That was what success actually looked like. On our 3rd wedding anniversary, Daniel and I sat beneath the oak tree again. Emma helped lay out the blanket, placing plates of food with careful attention. The evening light softened everything, turning the world gold. Someone contacted me last week, Daniel said casually, handing me a glass of lemonade. A publisher. They want you to write a book about your journey. I shook my head immediately. I don't want to live in that story, I said, even if it could help someone else. But later, I thought about it, not about the past, about what it meant to finally leave it behind. I really thought about it. If I ever tell this story, I said finally, it will be on my terms. Not for revenge, not for attention, just to remind someone out there that they're not alone. Emma climbed into my lap, her hair still smelling like sunshine and grass. Tell me a story, Mom. I kissed the top of her head. Once upon a time, I said softly, there was a teacher who found her real family. The letter arrived on a Tuesday in October, almost exactly a year after the ceremony. There was no return address. Just my name written in handwriting I recognized instantly. Careful, elegant, controlled. The same handwriting my mother had always been proud of. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time, just holding the envelope. Daniel came in from outside, saw it in my hands, and quietly sat across from me. You don't have to open it, he said. I know. But I did anyway. Inside were 2 pages, handwritten on thick cream paper. Her initials pressed into the corner. Reagan. I've written this letter more times than I can count. Every version tried to explain, to justify, to make sense of what I did. But the truth is simpler than that. I was afraid of what people would think, afraid of being judged, afraid that your choices somehow reflected my failures. I don't expect you to forgive me. I haven't forgiven myself. I just need you to know that I was wrong, not misunderstood, not taken out of context. Wrong. I'm sorry for every moment you felt like you weren't enough. You don't owe me a response. You don't owe me anything. But if you ever want to talk, not to fix things, just to talk, I will be here. Your mother. Even if that word no longer means what it should. I read it twice. Then I folded it carefully and placed it in the kitchen drawer. What are you going to do? Daniel asked quietly. I don't know, I said. I looked out the window at the oak tree, its leaves turning warm shades of amber in the afternoon light. But for the first time, I don't feel like I need to decide right now. You know what stayed with me the longest after everything happened? It wasn't anger. It wasn't even sadness. It was a question. Why? Why would a mother erase her own daughter? What kind of person looks at their child and sees something to hide? I spent months trying to understand it. Reading, talking to people, trying to make sense of something that never made sense. And eventually, I learned something important. People like my mother don't wake up one day and decide to be cruel. They are shaped that way. She grew up in a world where love had conditions, where approval had to be earned, where worth was tied to success, to appearance, to how others saw you. When my siblings followed the paths she understood, she felt validated. Their achievements became proof that she had done everything right. But I chose something different, something she couldn't explain, something that didn't fit into the image she had spent her life building, and instead of questioning herself, she removed the part that didn't match. That doesn't excuse what she did. Nothing excuses abandoning your child, but understanding it changed something for me. Her rejection was never about my value. It was about her fear. And if you've ever been in a place like that, I want you to hear this. You are not responsible for fixing people who hurt you. You can understand someone without letting them back into your life. You can have compassion without sacrificing your boundaries. And boundaries are not punishment. They are protection. They are the choices you make about what you allow and what you no longer accept. If you would choose to walk away, protect your peace, and build a life where you are truly valued just like I did, right? Leave, so I know I wasn't wrong. But if you believe you would go back, forgive, and try to rebuild the relationship no matter what happened, then write return. And if you're still unsure, still caught between your heart and your boundaries, you can write, I need to think. This was my story, but I know many of you have your own, and I'd truly like to hear yours. There was a moment in my life when I finally understood something I had spent years chasing. Being loved should never feel like something you have to earn. For a long time, I thought if I tried harder, achieved more, or became enough in someone else's eyes, I would finally be accepted. But the truth is, real love doesn't come with conditions, comparisons, or silent punishments. It shows up, it stays, it chooses you, even when you're not perfect. What I learned from my journey is simple, but not easy. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from the people who refuse to see your worth. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of self-respect. Because choosing yourself is not selfish, it's necessary. And when you do, you make space for the kind of people who will love you the way you deserve. Thank you for being here, for listening, for feeling, and for sharing this moment with me. And hey, maybe take a second right now. Stretch your shoulders a little, relax your eyes, and drink some water. You deserve that care too. If this story meant something to you, don't keep it to yourself. Your voice matters. You matter. Leave a comment, share your thoughts, or simply let someone else know they're not alone by sharing this video. And if you want to be part of a community that values empathy, strength, and real stories, consider subscribing and staying with us on this journey. I'm truly grateful you're here, wishing you peace, strength, and the courage to choose yourself every single day. See you in the next story.
Welcome to Family Confessions. Our stories go beyond entertainment, helping viewers recognize toxic behaviors, understand boundaries, and reflect on their relationships, while reinforcing self-worth and the strength to heal and move forward. Each video follows a structured workflow ensuring quality and value for our audience. Thank you for being here.